It was a treat, I mean, I just felt like it was a gift every day.
At 81 years old, Sam Elliott finally decides to do the unthinkable. For half a century, Hollywood has whispered about him, the mustached cowboy with the thunderstorm voice, the man who carried mystery the way other actors carried fame. But today, for the first time, he leans back in his leather chair, breathes out slowly, and says, "I think it's time I told the truth." His interviewer freezes. No one, not fans, not tabloids, not even lifelong colleagues, expected this moment to ever happen. Because Sam Elliott isn't about to talk about movies. He isn't here to revisit Tombstone or The Big Lebowski or A Star is Born. No. Sam is about to reveal the 7 actresses who shaped his life far beyond the cameras, 7 names, 7 secrets, 7 women who stepped into the quiet world of Hollywood's most enigmatic leading man and left their mark on him forever. The room grows still, the kind of a stillness you only feel in a desert right before a storm breaks. Sam leaves his glass of whiskey. The ice clinks like distant spurs in an empty saloon. He stares past the camera, past the interviewer, into a place only he can see. And then, with a soft twitch of that legendary mustache, he finally speaks. "It all started a long time before fame ever found me. The truth Sam Elliott is ready to confess will forever change how the world sees him. Not as the cowboy, not as the legend, but as the man who loved deeply, quietly, and sometimes dangerously." Sam Elliott doesn't start with scandals. He starts with the woman whose name has echoed through his life more than any other, Katharine Ross. Most people think they know this story. Hollywood calls it a fairy tale. 2 actors meeting on the set of The Legacy in 1978, falling in love and riding into the sunset like the perfect cinematic couple. But Sam leans forward slightly and shakes his head. "They have no idea," he murmurs, "because what the world remembers is only the surface. What really happened, the real beginning, wasn't in a love scene, or over a romantic dinner, or in some scripted moment created for cameras. It was much quieter. They were between takes." Katharine stood at a mirror, touching up her hair under the soft set lights. She lifted her eyes, and in the reflection, she caught Sam watching her. Not with lust, not with calculation, but with a kind of stunned admiration, as if he'd just witnessed something private and beautiful he wasn't meant to see. She smiled at him, a small, knowing smile. Gentle, electric, impossible to forget. Sam says that smile hit him harder than any line he'd ever delivered, like a spark striking dry timber. From that moment, the pull between them wasn't about choreography or performance. It wasn't Hollywood magic. It was real. Katharine Ross wasn't the first actress Sam had ever met, but she was the first who truly saw him. Not the mustache, not the cowboy voice, not the man who would one day be an icon. She saw the quiet soul beneath all of it, the tenderness he hid, the shyness he masked with silence, the depth that other people only guessed at. Their chemistry, Sam says, wasn't manufactured. It was inevitable, effortless. The kind of connection that doesn't just happen, that happens to you, like gravity pulling 2 planets together. And though the world later focused on their marriage, the love story Hollywood loved to romanticize, Sam remembers something completely different. "That first glance," he whispers, "told me everything I needed to know." But before Katharine, before the world knew his name, there were others, women who saw something in him long before he became the legend. Sam sets down his glass, and the interviewer can sense it. The next name he's about to reveal carries not fairy tale sweetness, but fire. Before Katharine Ross stepped into his destiny, there was another name, a woman whose beauty lit up entire rooms before she even opened her mouth, Sybil Shepherd. In the mid-70s, Sybil was already royalty in Hollywood. Fresh off the success of The Last Picture Show, she had become the kind of blonde bombshell who didn't just get attention, she commanded it. Men in the industry practically fell over themselves trying to impress her. But Sam Elliott? It wasn't like other men. He didn't try to charm her with long stories about himself. He didn't brag, he didn't push. He simply existed, tall, quiet, steady in a world that was anything but. That calmness, that quiet confidence was exactly what drew Sybil to him. Sam recalls their first meaningful conversation not at a Hollywood party or glittering event, but in a place far more ordinary, a forgotten filming town, hotel hallways that smelled of dust and old carpets, the kind of place where the stars became human again. What they shared was never meant for the tabloids. In fact, the gossip columns at the time were too busy chasing Sybil's public relationships with directors and producers, men who could offer her more fame, bigger opportunities, louder headlines. Sam was none of that. Not yet. He was a man still fighting for recognition, still questioning whether that deep, gravelly voice of his had a place in Hollywood. But Sybil saw something in him, honesty in a town built on illusion, groundedness in an industry full of smoke and mirrors. Their affair was brief, but Sam remembers it with a warmth that lingers in his voice. Stolen moments behind closed doors, late-night drives through the desert where the headlights carved roads into the dark, nights where two people found comfort, not in promises, but in presence. She taught me, Sam says softly, that desire doesn't have to be complicated. It didn't need to be dramatic or tangled in expectations. Sometimes two people simply fit perfectly, beautifully, even if only for a moment in time. And then his voice lowers just a little. Of all the women I knew back then, he continues, she was the first to show me that intimacy could be simple and still mean something. But the next name he speaks carries a different weight, a kind of shimmering sadness wrapped in a starlight. It belongs to a woman the whole world adored. The third name leaves Sam quiet for a moment, not because he regrets it, but because it carries a different kind of memory. Farrah Fawcett. In the late 70s, Farrah wasn't just famous, she was the face of American beauty. That sun-kissed golden hair, that iconic smile that launched a million posters, the effortless charisma that made her seem almost unreal, like a dream sculpted by Hollywood itself. But Sam remembers something else. She was searching, he murmurs, eyes softening. They met at a charity event in 1979, a room buzzing with laughter, champagne, and people pretending to be more important than they truly were. Farrah walked in like a lighthouse, bright, untouchable, radiant. Yet when she spoke to Sam, her voice carried a whisper of something fragile beneath all that perfection. Most people looked at her and saw fame. He looked at her and saw vulnerability. Their connection wasn't supposed to happen. Not then. Not with her involved with Lee Majors, one of Hollywood's biggest names, a relationship already fracturing in ways the public didn't yet see. But chemistry doesn't wait for permission. For 6 secret months, Farrah and Sam lived in a world of their own making, a world far away from the glare of paparazzi, the tabloids, the noise. They hid in private houses, quiet beach rentals, secluded corners of Malibu where the waves were loud enough to drown out every worry. She laughed easily, Sam remembers, but she loved carefully. He says this with irreverence, as if holding a fragile piece of the past in his hands. Farrah wasn't looking for a scandal. She wasn't looking for a man to save her. She was looking for peace. Someone who wouldn't use her, envy her, or try to control the image the world demanded she maintain. With Sam, she found that peace, if only temporarily. He recalls late-night conversations where Farrah confessed fears she never dared to say publicly. The pressure of being America's sweetheart, the loneliness that came with being adored by millions but truly known by so few, the quiet ache of wanting something real in a life built on performance. Their affair ended gently without bitterness, like two people stepping out of a dream they knew could not survive daylight. We both needed something from each other, Sam says. And when we'd given it, the moment was over. But the next name he reveals is one that surprises the interviewer. A woman not known for glamour or a scandal, but for her brilliance, her intensity, and a fire that matched Sam's own. When Sam speaks the next name, his voice shifts, not softer, not sadder, but deeper. Glenn Close. Before the world knew her as the brilliant, unnerving force of fatal attraction, before she became the icon of fierce, intelligent womanhood on screen, she was a respected stage actress with sharp instincts and a quiet power that could fill any room without her raising her voice. They met while filming a television movie almost no one remembers now, except the two people whose lives were changed by it. From the very first table read, Glenn was different. She didn't flirt, she didn't fuss, she didn't fall into the easy rhythm of on-set attraction the way other actresses sometimes did around Sam. She watched him, not with desire but with evaluation, and then she challenged him hard. "Show me the man behind the silence," she once told him during a late-night rehearsal. No actress had ever said something like that to him before. In a world where everyone seemed hypnotized by his mustache, his height, his cowboy charm, Glenn Close looked straight through the surface and demanded depth, demanded truth. And Sam, for one of the first times in his life, rose to meet that challenge. Their connection was as much intellectual as it was physical. Long conversations in a small hotel rooms, debates about the scripts, characters, the purpose of art, discussions so intense they often carried on until dawn with coffee cups scattered across the table like evidence of a crime. Glenn didn't let Sam hide behind his laconic persona. She pushed him to dig deeper, to explore emotional corners he'd never dared to touch, and he pushed back, quietly but firmly, grounding her intensity with his steadiness. The chemistry between them was unmistakable to anyone who saw them together on set. Not loud, not dramatic, but simmering, like embers that glowed hotter the longer you stared. Their affair didn't last long, a few weeks, maybe a little more, but the mark it left on both of them was undeniable. She was the first woman, Sam admits, who made me better without asking me to change. When he says this, the room grows still, because some connections aren't about romance or passion or secrecy. Some are about growth, awakening, seeing yourself through someone else's brilliance and becoming more because of it. But as the interviewer leans forward, Sam shifts again. The next story carries weight, regret, the kind of pull that never fully leaves a man's bones. It belongs to a woman whose name itself feels like a spotlight. Yet, when Sam finally speaks the next name, it lingers in the air with a gravity all its own. Cher. By the early 1980s, Cher wasn't just a superstar, she was a phenomenon. A woman whose presence alone could silence a room faster than any spotlight. Her voice, her attitude, her unmistakable aura. But Sam doesn't talk about the legend, he talks about the woman behind it. Their paths crossed at a Hollywood party Sam had no intention of attending. He never cared for the schmoozing, the small talk, the shimmering social games of the industry. He was a man who preferred the quiet corners, and that night he found one. A balcony overlooking Los Angeles, the city lights glittering beneath them like scattered diamonds. That's where she found him. Not as a Cher, the larger-than-life icon, but as a woman seeking a moment of silence in a world that never stopped demanding more of her. She approached him slowly, almost shyly, and asked if she could join him. There was no performance in her voice, just fatigue, humanity. What followed was 3 months of stolen tenderness, an unexpected intimacy between two people who carried more weight on their shoulders than the world ever realized. For the first time, Sam reveals the truth. Cher wasn't the fearless warrior the public worshipped, not when the cameras stopped. With him, she could drop the armor. She curled up beside him during long coastal drives, letting the night air wash away her anxieties. She confessed how exhausting it was to be Cher every waking moment, how afraid she was that people loved the persona more than the woman. And Sam, the quiet cowboy who rarely allowed his emotions to surface, found himself opening up to her in ways he hadn't with anyone else. She let me see the parts of herself she hid from the world, he says, voice thick with memory. In return, she pushed him, gently but firmly, to stop hiding from his own rising star, to embrace the talent he kept trying to downplay, to stop running from the spotlight that was slowly, inevitably finding him. Their bond was deep, soft, strangely grounding for two people used to living under intense pressure. But like many things that burn bright and tender, it couldn't last. Cher needed the spotlight. Her career demanded it. Public attention was not just a part of her world. It was her world. Sam, on the other hand, thrived in the shadows. He was never made for constant exposure, for flashing cameras, for public scrutiny. Their goodbye wasn't dramatic. It wasn't angry. It was accepting, quiet, two grown souls understanding that love isn't always enough to survive the environments that shape us. She changed me, Sam admits, and I changed her in ways no one will ever fully understand. But even Cher is not the most unexpected name on his list. The next woman enters his story like a wildfire, brilliant, emotionally fierce, and determined to be recognized not for beauty, but for depth. When Sam speaks the next name, there's a quiet respect in his tone, not sorrow, not longing, but admiration, deep, unwavering Jessica Lange. By 1983, Jessica was a comet streaking across Hollywood's sky. Tootsie and Francis had catapulted her into a different stratosphere. She had the beauty, yes, the kind that could have carried an entire career on its own, but Jessica Lange was determined to be more than a pretty face in a pretty frame, and Sam saw that in her instantly. They met at a film festival, each surrounded by crowds but somehow still alone. Jessica carried herself with the elegance of a woman who knew her worth, but Sam sensed something restless beneath her poise, a tension, a yearning. It didn't take long for their conversations to reveal what was hiding behind her calm exterior. Jessica was tired of being treated like a commodity, like a product to market, like beauty first, talent second. And Sam, a man who had always avoided playing the Hollywood game, understood this struggle better than anyone. What drew them together wasn't glamour, it wasn't fame, it was recognition. Two artists searching for authenticity in an industry obsessed with illusion. Their affair lasted 8 months, longer than most of the connections Sam had before Katharine Ross. But more importantly, it was a relationship carved out of a shared truth. They met in forgotten towns across America while shooting different films, motels with flickering signs, back roads with no traffic, places where no one cared who they were. And that was exactly the point. Jessica challenged him emotionally, just as Glenn Close had challenged him intellectually. She pushed him to find emotional honesty in his characters, to go deeper, to dig past the gravelly voice and rugged presence the industry had stamped onto him. And Sam gave her something in return: quiet, solace, a place to set down her anxieties without fear of judgment. Their physical chemistry was undeniable, but it wasn't what defined them. What bound them was conversation, hours and hours of it, about art, about purpose, about the painful responsibility of telling the truth through performance. They saw each other clearly, maybe too clearly, and that's why the end came not with anger, but inevitability. Jessica was rising, fast, leading roles were calling, awards, prestige. She was stepping into the full power of her craft. Sam, meanwhile, was finding his lane as the dependable, unforgettable presence the audience trusted, the soul of a story, even when he wasn't the star. Their careers were pulling them in different directions, and love, despite its strength, sometimes bends under the weight of destiny. They parted with respect, gratitude, and a connection that never soured. She taught me to be brave, Sam says quietly, and I hope I taught her to breathe. But the next name, the seventh woman, is different. The memory of her carries a mystery that even time can't untangle. She wasn't the brightest star in Hollywood, but she was perhaps the one who came closest to truly knowing the man behind the mustache. Sam takes a long breath before the final name, not because he's unsure, but because this woman, was different from all the rest. In the mid-'80s, she was already considered one of Hollywood's most respected dramatic actresses. Not the flashy kind of a star, not the tabloid kind, but the kind of artist other actors admired silently, even enviously. Sam describes her with a softness that stands in contrast to the rugged persona the world knows. She saw through me, he says, immediately. Their meeting wasn't glamorous. No red carpet, no industry gala, just two people attending the same small theater production in Los Angeles, both drawn by their shared love for raw, unpolished storytelling. After the show, they ended up in the same little coffee shop, a dim place with crooked pictures on the walls and mismatched chairs, the kind of spot where real conversations happen. They both commented on the performance, then on acting, then on truth, then on life, and without realizing it, a connection was formed, not rushed, not forced, but inevitable. He remembers the exact moment he realized she was unlike anyone he had ever known. Most people saw the cowboy. She saw the man. She recognized the intelligence behind his silence, the vulnerability beneath his stoicism, the depth that others overlooked because of his rugged exterior. And Sam was mesmerized by her duality, the strength that could cut through any room, and the gentleness that surfaced only when she trusted someone enough to show it. Their relationship lasted 2 years, the longest affair Sam had outside of Katharine Ross. 2 years of walking through Griffith Park. 2 years of long talks that stretched into philosophical tangents. 2 years of emotional shelter from a world that demanded too much of both of them. It was the most complicated love I ever knew, Sam admits, not because of lies or betrayal, but because of how deeply we felt. Their connection was powerful, too powerful, so powerful it began to eclipse everything else, their careers, their responsibilities, their lives. They both felt it, the pull that could consume them if they let it, and so, painfully, quietly, they stepped back. Not because the love faded, but because it burned too brightly. Ending it wasn't a failure, it was an act of survival. When Sam finishes speaking, the room is silent. The interviewer senses that although he has named 7 women, his journey through memory isn't over. There is something else, something heavier, resting behind his eyes, something he hasn't said yet. The air in the room seems to thicken. Sam Elliott has already revealed 7 names, 7 women who shaped the man behind the legend. But the interviewer senses it. There's something unsaid, something heavier, something he has carried for nearly 50 years. Sam's fingers tighten slightly around his whiskey glass. His eyes drift far away as though he's staring backward through time. There's something else, he finally whispers, and I've never told anyone, not even Katharine. The room falls utterly still. Outside, the wind stops. Even nature seems to lean closer. And then Sam says the name like a confession, pulled from the deepest part of his soul, Raquel Welch. The words hang in the air like a ghost returning after decades of silence. He was nobody then, just a lanky young actor in 1976, fighting for bit parts, unsure if Hollywood would ever take him seriously. She, on the other hand, was Raquel Welch, a global icon, a woman whose beauty defined an era, a fantasy made flesh. She was everything I wasn't, Sam murmurs, sophisticated, worldly, completely in control of her life, or at least she seemed to be. Their paths crossed in the most unexpected of places, not a high-end party, not a studio event, but a small gritty dive bar in Venice Beach. A forgotten corner of Los Angeles where actors went to disappear. Sam noticed her first, sitting alone at the bar, sunglasses on, despite the midnight hour. Not glamorous, not polished, just tired. A woman seeking a moment of anonymity in a world that refused to give her any. He didn't approach her, didn't stare, didn't try to charm. He simply minded his own business. And that, ironically, is exactly why she spoke to him. Got a light? She asked. Her voice wasn't the sultry purr the world knew. It was soft, almost vulnerable. From that single moment, a secret chapter of Sam's life began. A chapter he now unfolds with a tenderness that seems to transport him completely. Their affair burned quietly, intensely, in hidden spaces across Los Angeles. Her house in the hills, Coastal Road at night, places untouched by paparazzi. She would cook for him, wearing nothing but his shirt. Not as a seductress, but as a woman finally able to be ordinary, unobserved, human. She was generous, Sam says, not with money, not with fame, with herself. She told him the stories she never told the world, the compromises fame demanded, the loneliness that echoed behind applause, the weight of being a symbol when all she wanted was to be seen as a person. And Sam saw her, not the poster, not the fantasy, not the myth, but the woman. Their connection was real, painfully real, but like many beautiful things in Hollywood, it wasn't built to last. She was Raquel Welch. He was a young actor with everything still ahead of him. Their worlds were moving in opposite directions, even as their hearts leaned together. Still, he carries her memory like a warm scar. Those 3 weeks, Sam says softly, reminded me that sometimes the brightest moments of your life happen before anyone even knows your name. As dusk settles across his Malibu home, Sam places the empty whiskey glass aside. The confession is complete. 7 women and 1 unforgettable secret. They taught me, he says finally, that desire isn't something you can script. It lives in the spaces between 2 souls, in the honesty we're brave enough to share. And with that, Sam Elliott, the cowboy, the mystery, the legend, lets the